Marcus Thompson stepped out of his car and felt the warm afternoon sun hit his face. He wore his dress blue Marine uniform with perfect precision. Every button was polished until it shined like a mirror. His black shoes reflected the sunlight as he walked across the school parking lot. The uniform meant everything to him. It represented 15 years of serving his country with honor and pride. Today was different from all the other days. Today was special. His son David was graduating from high school with top honors. Marcus had dreamed of this moment for years. During his long deployments overseas, he would close his eyes and picture himself sitting in the audience watching David walk across the stage. He had missed so many important moments because of his military service. Birthday parties, soccer games, school plays, and countless other events had passed without him there. But not today. Nothing would keep him away from his son's graduation. The high school looked beautiful in the late afternoon light. Red brick buildings stretched across green lawns where students had walked for generations. American flags hung from poles near the main entrance, moving gently in the warm breeze. Parents and families were already arriving for the ceremony. They carried flowers, balloons, and cameras ready to capture every precious moment of their children's big day. Marcus checked his watch. The graduation ceremony would start in exactly 25 minutes. He wanted to find the perfect seat where he could see everything clearly. His wife Sarah was deployed with the Navy somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. She would miss this moment, but Marcus had promised to record everything on his phone. He would send her videos and pictures so she could feel like she was there too. Walking toward the school entrance, Marcus felt his chest swell with pride. David had worked so hard for this achievement. The boy had maintained perfect grades while his father was away on dangerous missions. During video calls from military bases, David would show his report cards to the camera. His eyes would light up when Marcus praised his efforts. The father-son bond had remained strong despite the thousands of miles that often separated them. Other families streamed past Marcus heading toward the auditorium. Grandparents moved slowly using walking canes and holding onto younger relatives for support. Little children ran ahead of their parents, excited by all the activity. Teenagers dressed in their finest clothes walked nervously toward the building where they would soon become high school graduates. Everyone seemed happy and excited about the evening ahead. Marcus pulled out his phone and typed a quick message to David. His fingers moved carefully across the screen as he wrote words of encouragement. The message was simple but filled with love. Dad is here and proud of you. Semper Fi, son. He knew David would be backstage with his classmates, feeling nervous about walking across the stage in front of hundreds of people. The text message would help calm his nerves and remind him that his father was there cheering him on. The Marine uniform drew respectful glances from other parents. Some nodded politely when they saw his service ribbons and rank insignia. Marcus had earned those decorations through brave actions in Afghanistan and Iraq. Each ribbon told a story of sacrifice and service to his country. He wore them with quiet dignity, never boasting about his accomplishments, but never hiding from his duty either. As Marcus approached the main entrance, he could hear sounds coming from inside the building. The school band was warming up for their performance. Voices echoed through the hallways as staff members made final preparations. The excitement was building and Marcus felt his heart beating faster. This was the moment he had been waiting for. His son was about to achieve something wonderful, and nothing in the world could spoil this perfect day. The proud father adjusted his uniform one final time and walked confidently toward the school entrance, ready to witness the most important moment in his son's young life. 2 security guards stood near the main entrance of the school like watchful sentries. They wore matching navy blue uniforms with shiny gold badges pinned to their chests. The older guard was named Bill. He was a heavy-set man in his 50s with gray hair and a permanent scowl on his weathered face. His younger partner, Rick, was thin and eager to please his supervisor. Rick had only been working security for 3 months and still felt nervous about making decisions on his own. Bill had been working security jobs for over 20 years. He considered himself an expert at spotting trouble before it started. His eyes constantly scanned the crowds, looking for anything that seemed out of place. Today he felt especially important because the graduation ceremony was a big event. Hundreds of families would be entering the building, and he took his responsibility seriously. At least that is what he told himself. The truth was that Bill had his own prejudices that clouded his judgment. He made quick assumptions about people based on how they looked rather than who they really were. These unfair thoughts had gotten him in trouble at previous jobs, but he never seemed to learn from his mistakes. Rick looked up to Bill and trusted his experience, even when something felt wrong in his gut. As Marcus Thompson approached the entrance, Bill nudged his partner with his elbow. "Look at this guy," Bill muttered under his breath. His voice carried a tone of suspicion and dislike. Probably stolen valor. These people always trying to get attention. Rick felt uncomfortable with his partner's words, but he did not have the courage to speak up. He had seen Bill make similar comments before about other people, and it never felt right. The two guards watched Marcus walk closer to the building. His military bearing was obvious in every step he took. His back was straight, his shoulders were square, and his head was held high with quiet confidence. The dress blue uniform fit him perfectly, and every ribbon and decoration was placed exactly where it should be. To anyone with real military knowledge, Marcus clearly looked like a genuine Marine with years of honorable service. But Bill saw something completely different. His prejudiced mind created a false story about what he was seeing. He convinced himself that Marcus was pretending to be a Marine to gain respect or sympathy. The idea that a black man could earn such decorations through brave military service did not fit into Bill's narrow worldview. Rick watched his partner's face grow stern and hostile as Marcus got closer to the entrance. Other families continued to flow around the guards heading into the building for the ceremony. Parents carried flowers and balloons while children skipped alongside them. Grandparents moved slowly but with happy smiles on their faces. Everyone seemed excited about the graduation except for the two security guards who were focused on the approaching Marine. Marcus had no idea what was waiting for him at the entrance. He was thinking about his son David and the proud moment they were about to share. In his mind, he was already sitting in the auditorium watching David walk across the stage to receive his diploma. He pictured the smile on his son's face and the way David would look for his father in the crowd. These happy thoughts filled Marcus with joy as he walked toward what he expected to be a routine entrance to the building. Bill stepped forward, slightly positioning himself to block Marcus's path. Rick followed his partner's lead, even though something in his stomach told him this was wrong. The older guard's face showed determination and authority. He believed he was about to catch someone trying to deceive the school and the families attending the ceremony. In his twisted thinking, he saw himself as a hero protecting innocent people from a fraud. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything for everyone involved. Marcus reached the entrance with a warm smile on his face, ready to join the celebration inside. His mind was filled with thoughts of his son David, who was probably getting ready backstage with his classmates. The proud father had no idea that two security guards were watching his every move with suspicious eyes. He expected to walk through the doors like every other parent and find a good seat for the ceremony. Bill, the older guard, stepped directly into Marcus's path, blocking his way to the entrance. His face showed stern authority as he raised his hand like a stop sign. Rick, the younger guard, moved to stand beside his partner, even though his stomach felt twisted with uncertainty. The happy flow of families entering the building continued around them, but Marcus suddenly found himself trapped in an uncomfortable situation. "Excuse me, sir," Bill said in a loud voice that carried across the entrance area. His tone was demanding and rude, unlike how he had spoken to other parents. "We are going to need to see some identification and proof that you belong here." The words hit Marcus like a slap in the face. He looked around and noticed that no other parents had been asked to show identification. White families had walked past the guards without being stopped or questioned. Marcus felt the familiar sting of discrimination that he had hoped to leave behind after years of military service. His training kicked in immediately, helping him stay calm despite the unfair treatment. The Marine Corps had taught him to keep his composure under pressure, and that training served him well now. He took a deep breath and responded with polite professionalism, even though his heart was beating faster. "Of course," Marcus replied, keeping his voice steady and respectful. "I am here for my son David Thompson's graduation." He reached into his wallet to pull out the requested identification. Other parents near the entrance had started to notice the confrontation. Some slowed their walking to watch what was happening. A few pulled out their phones, sensing that something was going wrong. The security guard's behavior was drawing unwanted attention to the entrance. Parents whispered to each other, wondering why this well-dressed Marine was being treated differently from everyone else. Children tugged on their parents' sleeves, asking questions about why the man in the pretty uniform was being stopped. The atmosphere around the entrance began to change from celebration to confusion and concern. Bill examined the identification cards that Marcus handed to him. He held them up to the light and studied them with exaggerated care, as if he was looking for signs of forgery. "These could be fake," he announced loudly enough for the growing crowd of onlookers to hear clearly. "We have had problems with people impersonating military personnel." His voice carried across the entrance area, making sure everyone nearby could hear his accusations. Marcus felt his jaw muscles tighten, but he maintained his military bearing. "Sir, those are official military documents," he replied with controlled dignity. "I am a gunnery sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, and I am here to watch my son graduate." His voice remained calm, but inside he felt a storm of emotions building. The injustice of the situation was clear to everyone watching, but the guards seemed determined to continue their harassment. Rick shifted uncomfortably beside his partner. Deep down he knew they were making a terrible mistake, but he lacked the courage to stand up to Bill. The younger guard could see that Marcus was clearly a legitimate Marine based on his uniform and professional demeanor. Everything about the man screamed authentic military service, from his polished shoes to his perfectly placed ribbons and decorations. More parents stopped to watch the scene unfolding at the entrance. Some began taking pictures and videos with their phones. The confrontation was escalating, and people were starting to choose sides. Most of the onlookers could see the obvious injustice happening before their eyes, but no one had yet found the courage to step forward and intervene on Marcus's behalf. Bill handed the identification cards back to Marcus with a dismissive wave of his hand. The older guard's face showed no respect or apology for his behavior. "I don't care what these papers say," he declared loudly for everyone around to hear. "You don't look like you belong here, and we have the right to refuse entry to anyone we think is suspicious." His words cut through the air like a knife, causing several parents nearby to gasp in shock and disbelief. Marcus felt his hands begin to tremble slightly, but not from fear. The trembling came from deep anger that he was working hard to control. 15 years of military service had taught him discipline and self-control, but this situation was testing every ounce of his training. He thought about his son David inside the building, probably wondering where his father was. The promise he had made to be there for this important moment burned in his heart like a flame. The crowd around the entrance had grown much larger now. More parents had stopped their conversations to watch the confrontation unfold before their eyes. Some were openly shaking their heads in disapproval at the guards' obvious discrimination. Others pulled out their phones and began recording the incident, knowing they were witnessing something wrong and unjust. The atmosphere had changed from celebration to tension and concern. Rick, the younger guard, looked more uncomfortable with each passing moment. He could see the growing disapproval in the faces of the watching parents. Deep in his heart, he knew his partner was making a terrible mistake, but years of following orders made it hard for him to speak up. His training had taught him to support his supervisor even when his conscience told him otherwise. The internal conflict showed clearly on his young face. "Sir, I have every right to be here," Marcus said with controlled dignity. His voice remained steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. "My son is graduating today, and I served this country for 15 years. I am not leaving." The simple statement carried the weight of truth and honor that resonated with everyone listening. Several parents nodded their heads in agreement and support. Inside the auditorium, the graduation ceremony was about to begin. The sound of the school band warming up drifted through the open doors, mixing with the voices of excited families finding their seats. Marcus could hear the familiar sounds of the celebration. He was being denied the chance to join. The thought of missing his son's moment made his chest feel tight with emotion and frustration. Bill was not finished with his harassment. The older guard seemed determined to prove his authority regardless of how wrong his actions appeared to everyone watching. He stepped closer to Marcus, invading his personal space in a threatening manner. His face showed arrogance and prejudice that had been building for years. The confrontation was reaching a dangerous point where something bad might happen. "You need to leave now, or we will call the police," Bill threatened with growing aggression. "This is a private event, and we don't want any trouble here." His words were filled with implied threats and racial undertones that made the watching parents feel sick to their stomachs. Some began to murmur their disapproval more loudly, while others looked around hoping someone would step forward to help. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed the guards a picture of himself with David, taken just a few weeks earlier. "This is my son," he said firmly, pointing to the image on his screen. "He is graduating today with honors, and I have never missed an important moment in his life when I wasn't deployed overseas. I am not going to start missing them now." The photo clearly showed the strong bond between father and son, making the guard's behavior seem even more cruel and senseless. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife as the confrontation reached a critical point. Just as the confrontation seemed ready to explode into something much worse, 6 men appeared from across the parking lot. They walked with confident strides that showed years of military training and discipline. These men wore civilian clothes, but their alert postures and coordinated movement revealed their true nature. They were Navy SEALs, some still serving on active duty, and others recently retired from the elite Special Forces unit. The 6 SEALs had been attending the same graduation ceremony for their own family members. From across the parking lot, they had witnessed the unfair treatment being given to Marcus. Their trained eyes immediately recognized a fellow warrior in distress. Without speaking a word to each other, they had made the decision to intervene. Military brotherhood ran deeper than any differences in service branches or skin color. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan led the group as they approached the entrance. He was the senior-ranking member among the 6 SEALs and carried himself with the quiet confidence that comes from leading men through dangerous missions. His calm but authoritative presence began to change the entire atmosphere around the confrontation. The other 5 SEALs spread out in a tactical formation that looked casual but was actually very strategic. "Is there a problem here?" Jake asked as he stepped forward. His voice carried the kind of authority that made people stop and listen carefully. The tone was not threatening, but it commanded respect from everyone within hearing distance. Bill, the older security guard, suddenly found himself facing 6 men who clearly knew how to handle difficult situations. The balance of power at the entrance had just shifted dramatically. The crowd of watching parents sensed the change immediately. These new arrivals were different from the other families at the graduation. Their bearing and coordination spoke of special training and dangerous missions completed successfully. Several parents pulled out their phones to record what was clearly becoming a much bigger confrontation than anyone had expected. Bill tried to maintain his authority in the face of this new challenge. "This man is trying to enter the building without proper authorization," he declared, pointing at Marcus. "We have reason to believe his credentials are fake, and he does not belong at this event." His voice sounded less confident now that he was facing 6 men who obviously had military experience themselves. Jake examined Marcus with the trained eye of a fellow warrior. Everything about the Marine screamed legitimate military service, from the perfect fit of his dress blue uniform to the precise placement of his ribbons and decorations. The way Marcus carried himself under pressure showed the discipline and training that could only come from years of real military experience. No fake soldier could maintain such professional bearing while being harassed and humiliated. The other 5 SEALs positioned themselves around Marcus in a show of solidarity and support. They did not speak, but their presence sent a clear message to everyone watching. These elite warriors had chosen their side in the confrontation, and they stood with their fellow service member. The silent support meant more to Marcus than any words could have expressed. Rick, the younger security guard, felt his knees go weak as he realized the magnitude of what was happening. 6 Navy SEALs had just arrived to support the Marine his partner was harassing. The situation had gone from bad to terrible in a matter of moments. His supervisor Bill seemed oblivious to the danger they were now facing, but Rick could see the writing on the wall. Parents in the crowd began whispering excitedly as they recognized what was unfolding before their eyes. Some had military backgrounds themselves and could identify the signs of elite special forces training. Others simply understood that 6 very serious-looking men had just chosen to stand with the Marine against the security guards. The atmosphere crackled with tension and anticipation. Jake stepped closer to Bill, his eyes never leaving the older guard's face. The SEAL commander's presence was intimidating without being threatening. Years of leading dangerous missions had taught him how to project authority and control in any situation. Bill began to realize that he had made a serious mistake, but his pride prevented him from backing down immediately. "Gunnery Sergeant Thompson," Jake said, reading the name tape on Marcus's uniform, with clear respect in his voice. "What unit are you with?" The question was asked in the way that only one military professional speaks to another. It carried recognition and brotherhood that transcended rank and service branch. Marcus straightened slightly, feeling the support and understanding that he had been denied by the security guards. 2nd Battalion 8th Marines, Sir, Marcus replied with military precision. "Currently stationed at Camp Lejeune." His answer confirmed what Jake had already suspected. This was a legitimate Marine with real credentials and honorable service. The SEAL commander nodded with approval, knowing that the 8th Marines had served with distinction in multiple combat deployments overseas. Jake turned to face the security guards with an expression that had grown much more serious. His steel gray eyes locked onto Bill's face with the kind of stare that had intimidated enemy fighters in foreign lands. "Gentlemen, I am Lieutenant Commander Sullivan, United States Navy," he said in a voice that cut through all the noise around them. "This Marine's credentials are clearly legitimate, and his conduct has been exemplary throughout this entire encounter." The other 5 SEALs moved closer to Marcus, creating a protective circle around their fellow warrior. Their silent presence spoke louder than any words could have expressed. These men had fought in the most dangerous places on earth, and they understood the bonds that unite those who serve their country. They would not stand by and watch a brother in arms be treated with such disrespect and discrimination. "You have no grounds to deny him entry to his son's graduation," Jake continued, his voice growing harder with each word. The authority in his tone was undeniable and came from years of making life and death decisions under extreme pressure. Bill found himself facing a man who commanded respect through actions rather than through bluster and bullying tactics. The crowd of parents had grown to nearly 70 people now. Many were openly recording the confrontation with their phones, knowing they were witnessing something extraordinary. The videos were already being shared on social media platforms, where they would soon reach thousands of viewers. What had started as a local incident was rapidly becoming a national story about discrimination and military brotherhood. Bill realized that the situation was spinning completely out of his control, but his wounded pride prevented him from admitting his mistake. "I don't care who you people are," he said defiantly, though his voice lacked the confidence it had carried earlier. "I am in charge of security here, and I say this man does not belong at this event." His words sounded hollow and desperate in the face of overwhelming opposition. The SEALs exchanged quick glances that communicated volumes without speaking. Years of working together in combat situations had taught them to read each other's thoughts and intentions. Without needing any verbal coordination, they tightened their protective formation around Marcus. The message was crystal clear to everyone watching, including the stubborn security guards. Chief Petty Officer Mike Rodriguez, one of the SEALs, stepped closer to Marcus and spoke quietly in his ear. "Brother, we have got your 6, he said, using the military phrase that means we have your back. The simple words brought the first smile to Marcus's face since the confrontation had begun. These warriors understood what it meant to stand together against injustice and discrimination. Parents in the crowd began to understand the significance of what they were witnessing. 6 elite Navy SEALs had chosen to stand with a Marine father who was being denied entry to his son's graduation ceremony. The bonds of military service ran deeper than any prejudice or discrimination that security guards might harbor. This was brotherhood in action, and it was beautiful to see. Rick, the younger security guard, felt sweat beginning to form on his forehead as he watched the situation develop. His partner Bill seemed determined to continue the confrontation despite facing overwhelming opposition. The young guard knew they were in serious trouble, but he still lacked the courage to stand up to his supervisor and do what was right. Inside the auditorium, the graduation ceremony was about to begin. The sound of families finding their seats mixed with the school band's final warm-up notes. Marcus could hear his son's future calling to him from beyond the entrance, but he was still being denied the chance to witness this milestone moment. The injustice of the situation became even more painful as precious time continued to slip away. Jake stepped directly in front of Bill, closing the distance between them until they were face to face. The SEAL commander's voice dropped to a low, controlled tone that commanded absolute attention from everyone within hearing distance. "Let me explain something to you," he said with deadly calm. "This Marine has served our country with honor for 15 years. He has earned the right to watch his son graduate, and your behavior is a disgrace to everything he has fought to protect." The words hit Bill like physical blows, but his stubborn pride still prevented him from backing down. The older guard had spent so many years bullying people that he could not accept being challenged by anyone regardless of their credentials or authority. His face turned red with embarrassment and anger as he realized that dozens of parents were recording his humiliation on their phones. The other SEALs remained silent, but their presence was more intimidating than any threats could have been. These men had faced enemy fighters in the most dangerous places on Earth, and they knew how to project strength without raising their voices. Their coordinated positioning and alert postures sent a clear message about their unity and determination to protect their fellow service member. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez moved to Marcus's side and placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. The gesture was simple, but it carried deep meaning for both men. Military brotherhood transcended all other considerations when a warrior was facing injustice and discrimination. The bond between those who had served in combat was stronger than any civilian could understand or break. The crowd of parents had grown to nearly 100 people now. The confrontation had become the center of attention for everyone arriving at the graduation ceremony. Some parents sent their children ahead into the building while they stayed to witness what was clearly becoming a historic moment. The atmosphere crackled with tension and anticipation as people waited to see how the situation would resolve. Someone in the crowd had called the school administration to report what was happening at the entrance. Mrs. Henderson, the principal, appeared at the doors looking flustered and deeply concerned about the commotion outside her school. She immediately recognized that something serious was wrong when she saw the large crowd gathered around the security guards and the group of military men. "What is going on here?" Mrs. Henderson demanded as she pushed through the crowd toward the center of the confrontation. Her face showed the kind of authority that came from years of dealing with difficult situations involving students' parents and staff members. The principal's arrival changed the dynamic once again as everyone turned to look at the person who had ultimate responsibility for the school event. Jake quickly explained the situation while Marcus remained dignified and composed despite the humiliation he had endured. The SEAL commander's clear, concise report made it obvious that the security guards had acted inappropriately and possibly illegally. Mrs. Henderson's face grew darker with anger as she understood the full scope of what had transpired at her school's most important annual event. "This is absolutely unacceptable," Mrs. Henderson declared, her voice shaking with indignation that could be heard throughout the crowd. "Gunnery Sergeant Thompson, I apologize profusely for this treatment on behalf of our entire school community. You are absolutely welcome at your son's graduation, and I personally guarantee that nothing like this will ever happen again at our school." The principal then turned to face Bill and Rick with fire blazing in her eyes. Her anger was righteous and justified as she prepared to deal with employees who had brought shame upon her school and violated every principle of fair treatment and respect. The two security guards suddenly realized that their actions would have serious consequences that extended far beyond this single confrontation. "You are both fired effective immediately," Mrs. Henderson announced in a voice that carried across the entire entrance area. Security personnel who cannot distinguish between protecting students and harassing decorated veterans have no place at our school or at any school event. Her words brought spontaneous applause from the crowd of parents who had witnessed the entire incident. Bill's face turned purple with rage and embarrassment as he realized that his career in security work was probably over. The videos of his behavior were already spreading across social media platforms, where they would be seen by potential employers throughout the region. His prejudice and poor judgment had finally caught up with him in a very public and humiliating way. Rick, the younger guard, approached Marcus with his head hanging low in shame. "Sir, I am truly sorry," he said with genuine remorse in his voice. "I knew this was wrong, but I did not have the courage to speak up and do what was right. Thank you for your service, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me for my cowardice and poor judgment." Marcus looked at the young security guard who stood before him with genuine remorse written across his face. Rick's apology was sincere and came from a heart that had been troubled throughout the entire confrontation. The Marine had seen enough of human nature during his military service to recognize real regret when he encountered it. His response would show the kind of character that had made him a respected leader among his fellow Marines. "Son, we all make mistakes," Marcus said with quiet dignity that impressed everyone who heard his words. "The important thing is learning from them and doing better next time. I accept your apology, and I hope this experience will help you find the courage to stand up for what is right in the future." His gracious response demonstrated the class and honor that had carried him through 15 years of military service. The crowd of parents erupted in spontaneous applause at Marcus's generous display of forgiveness. Many people wiped tears from their eyes as they witnessed this powerful example of grace under pressure. The Marine's ability to show mercy to someone who had participated in his humiliation revealed the depth of his character and the strength of his moral foundation. Rick felt overwhelming relief wash over him as he accepted Marcus's forgiveness. The young man had learned a valuable lesson about standing up for principles, even when it meant disagreeing with authority figures. He shook Marcus's hand with genuine gratitude before walking away to face the consequences of his poor choices during the confrontation. Bill, the older security guard, slunk away without offering any apology or acknowledgement of his wrong behavior. His face burned with shame and anger as he realized that his prejudiced attitudes had cost him his job and his reputation. The videos of his discriminatory treatment of Marcus would follow him for years to come, making it difficult to find future employment in security work. Mrs. Henderson approached Marcus with deep concern etched on her face. "Gunnery Sergeant Thompson," she said with genuine emotion, "I cannot express how sorry I am that this happened at our school. Your son David is an exceptional young man, and he should be incredibly proud to have a father like you. Please know that our entire school community honors your service and welcomes your family with open arms." The principal's heartfelt apology meant a great deal to Marcus, who had begun to wonder if he would ever make it inside to see his son graduate. Her words helped heal some of the pain caused by the guard's discriminatory behavior. The support of the school administration and the gathered parents showed that most people recognized injustice when they saw it and were willing to stand against it. Jake stepped forward and placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder in a gesture of military brotherhood. "Semper Fi, Marine," he said, using the motto that united all Marines regardless of when or where they had served. "Your son should be proud to have a father who handles adversity with such dignity and strength." The SEAL commander's respect meant everything to Marcus, who had felt so alone just minutes earlier. The other 5 SEALs gathered around Marcus, creating an honor guard that would escort him into the building. These elite warriors had seen enough injustice in their military careers to recognize it immediately when confronted with discrimination. Their silent support spoke volumes about the bonds that unite those who have served their country in dangerous places around the world. Several parents approached Marcus to shake his hand and thank him for his service to the country. Some were veterans themselves who understood the sacrifice that military families make when their loved ones deploy to foreign battlefields. Others were simply decent people who recognized courage and character when they witnessed it in action during difficult circumstances. The crowd began to disperse as families realized they needed to find seats for the graduation ceremony that was about to begin. However, many parents made sure to get pictures with Marcus and the SEALs who had supported him. The images would serve as reminders of a day when military brotherhood triumphed over prejudice and discrimination in a very public and powerful way. Marcus felt his emotions begin to settle as he prepared to finally enter the building where his son waited. The confrontation had been painful and humiliating, but it had also revealed the goodness that existed in the hearts of strangers who were willing to stand up for what was right. The SEALs had shown him that he was not alone in his fight against injustice and discrimination. Marcus finally walked through the entrance doors of the school with the 6 Navy SEALs surrounding him like an honor guard. The other parents in the hallway began clapping spontaneously as they recognized the significance of what they were witnessing. The applause grew louder as more people joined in creating an impromptu corridor of respect for the Marine who had handled injustice with such incredible dignity and strength. The sound of clapping hands echoed through the hallways as Marcus made his way toward the auditorium. Children pointed and asked their parents why everyone was cheering for the man in the pretty blue uniform. Parents explained in simple terms that sometimes good people have to stand up for what is right, and that the man in uniform was a hero who had served their country with honor and courage. Jake walked beside Marcus as they entered the main auditorium, where hundreds of families had gathered for the graduation ceremony. "Semper Fi, Marine," he said quietly so only Marcus could hear. "Your son should be proud to have a father like you. Thank you for showing all of us what real character looks like under pressure." The SEAL commander's words meant more to Marcus than any medal or decoration he had ever received. "Thank you, brothers," Marcus replied with tears of gratitude forming in his eyes. "This means more than you know. Without your support, I might have missed the most important moment in my son's life. Your willingness to stand with a stranger shows the true meaning of military brotherhood and service before self. The bonds formed in those few minutes outside would last for the rest of their lives." The SEALs found seats near Marcus, turning what had been a lonely ordeal into a celebration of military unity and shared values. These warriors had proven that the bonds between service members transcended all other considerations, including race, branch of service, and personal background. When one warrior faced injustice, they all faced it together as brothers in arms. The graduation ceremony began with the traditional processional music as students filed onto the stage in their caps and gowns. Marcus pulled out his phone to record every moment so he could share the experience with his wife, Sarah, who was deployed overseas. His hand shook slightly with emotion as he prepared to capture his son's greatest achievement up to this point in his young life. When David Thompson's name was called, the entire auditorium seemed to hold its breath. Marcus stood up and cheered louder than any parent in the building as his son walked across the stage to receive his diploma. The 6 SEALs stood with him, applauding not just for David, but for his father's courage and dignity throughout the terrible confrontation outside. Their standing ovation created a powerful moment of respect and recognition. David spotted his father in the crowd and immediately snapped to attention with a crisp military salute. The gesture brought tears to Marcus's eyes as he returned the salute with perfect precision. Father and son shared that special moment across the crowded auditorium, while hundreds of people witnessed the love and respect that existed between them despite years of separation due to military deployments. After the ceremony, families gathered outside for photographs and celebrations. The story of the Marine and the SEALs who had supported him spread quickly throughout the crowd. Parents approached Marcus to thank him for his service and to express their disgust at how he had been treated by the security guards. Many asked to take pictures with him and the SEALs who had become local heroes. David ran to his father and threw his arms around him in a fierce hug that expressed years of love and admiration. "Dad, I heard what happened outside," he said with pride shining in his young eyes. "Thank you for not giving up and for showing me what it means to stand up for what is right even when it is difficult and painful. You are my hero, and I want to be just like you when I grow up." The local news media had arrived and wanted to interview Marcus about the incident, but he politely declined. "This day belongs to my son, and all the other graduates, he explained to the reporters. I do not want to take attention away from their achievements by focusing on the ignorance of 2 security guards who forgot what this country stands for. His humble response showed once again the class and character that defined him as a person and as a Marine. The 6 SEALs exchanged contact information with Marcus and promised to stay in touch. Military brotherhood had brought them together, and it would keep them connected for years to come. They had proven that when good people stand together against injustice, they can overcome hatred and discrimination through unity and shared values that make America strong.